I'm Sarah Coates. Thanks for joining me. We begin with the political turmoil here in Israel, and Parliament Speaker Yuli Edelstein has held an emergency meeting with senior Blue and White and Likud party officials in an attempt to end the coalition deadlock. Meanwhile, Netanyahu speaking moments ago about a rally held in support of him yesterday in Israel, which turned violent.
I thank all of you for your huge support. You moved me. But I have one request. It's important to act responsibly within the bounds of the law, without overzealousness or violence. We respect the law and the courts, and I'm convinced that we will uncover the truth and that justice will be served.
And joining us from our Tel Aviv studios, our correspondent Jordana Miller. Jordana, thanks so much for joining us. Firstly, tell us, what do you make of these comments we've just heard from Benjamin Netanyahu following that rally there, which turned violent in support of him?
Well, Sarah, you know, there has been so much negative reporting about that rally last night attended by thousands of Netanyahu supporters. They were calling for the state prosecutors to be imprisoned. They were calling the justice system a system of incitement. And Netanyahu was blamed for really the language they used, because after he was indicted, he railed against the justice system, calling the investigations tainted and the allegations, you know, biased and false, and saying it was an attempted coup. So now it looks like Netanyahu is trying to kind of, you know, dial it back and bring some responsible rhetoric to the table. So he is saying to his supporters, thank you so much. But he said, let's remember, we need to, you know, abide by the law. We need to act responsibly without violence. And then he said, you know, we respect the law and the courts, and justice will be served. So Netanyahu really changing his tune here. And remember, even the Attorney General called the kind of language lies and slander and unacceptable. So it seems Netanyahu now is reacting to all that. Sarah?
And Jordana, tell me, what is the very latest with these meetings? We know that the heads of the Blue and White Party and also the Likud Party have been meeting with Parliament Speaker Yuli Edelstein. What's come out of that? What more do you know?
Right, Yuli Edelstein tonight meeting with the negotiating teams for both the Blue and White and Likud party. He's trying to make a kind of last-ditch effort to have these two parties come together to try to form a unity government. You know, in his statements after the meetings, he said there was a good atmosphere. The negotiating teams will meet again on Sunday. But one of the senior members from the Blue and White party already kind of throwing a wrench in the picture, saying that they refuse to sit in a unity government until Netanyahu is acquitted of his charges. So it doesn't look like Edelstein's making much headway. Perhaps they're talking about a third way, that maybe Netanyahu is not in the picture. We'll have to wait and see. Sarah?
Jordana Miller there in our Tel Aviv studio. Really appreciate the update. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
And for more, I'd like to bring in Professor Yossi Yona, who's a former member of Israeli Parliament, and Michael Kleiner, who's president of the Likud Party Supreme Court. Thank you both so much for joining me this evening. Gentlemen, I'd like to start off, we'll talk about the Likud Party. We have seen a lot come out in the last few days regarding possible attempted coup. Tell me, is that something you see happening here?
Attempted coup in the look in Blue and White, which is not a democratic party. Maybe they don't know things like that because there are three generals who are appointed members of Knesset who have to follow them, because otherwise they will not be appointed again. Likud is a democratic party, has 120,000 members, and the fact that a member announced that he will compete for the leadership is hardly a coup. It is a process that is regular and normal in a democratic party. He is fully entitled to. There are circumstances that are new. Some people believe we have to support Netanyahu, and some people say because Netanyahu, not because of the indictment. Also, Gideon Sa'ar is against the indictment. He believes it's unjust. But because Netanyahu tried twice and failed, he wants to try. He believes he can get a better result. There will be an election. There will be primaries. Let the best man win. And like in other democratic countries' parties, the loser will support the winner.
Yossi, what are your thoughts there?
Well, yeah, I have some reservation using the word coup, but definitely there are some mounting internal challenges to the leadership of Netanyahu. It has not been seen before, and I think that the challenges would increase as the days would go on. And it is indeed a very, very important development vis-a-vis the Likud party, because if until now the leadership of Netanyahu looked as if stable and enjoying overwhelming support of Likud's either members of parliament, registered members of the party, it is no longer the case. And I think that what we saw last night is indicative of that development. The very fact that the most of the Likud Knesset member did not appear. This is a very substantial thing. It would not have happened, say, half a year ago. So I think it is indeed a very important change. And again, we see that Netanyahu has not given up attempts to actually transfer his affair from the legal arena into the public arena. And the fact that he did not get the support of Likud's members, especially ministers and members of the parliament, shows that his power is indeed dwindling dramatically.
And I'd like to talk about something else we've been reporting on, these reported verbal attacks against journalists yesterday at a rally held in support of Benjamin Netanyahu. What are your thoughts on that? We're seeing these pictures coming in now that were shot yesterday.
Of course, this is a negative part that you can sometimes detect at a very emotional demonstration, and the demonstration yesterday was very emotional, and there is a feeling among a widespread Likud public that believes that the treatment of the press and the legal system and the prosecution against Netanyahu is very, very, very unfair. And this is a reflection of some people which undoubtedly we are not for, and we have to condemn it. Netanyahu will do it as well. Maybe the reason that some members of Knesset didn't show up in the demonstration yesterday, because some publication made it, instead of being a demonstration against the indictment, a demonstration against the indictors. And I am against the indictment, but I believe those who decided on it did it in good faith, and they are wrong, mistaken.
Well, the issue of selective enforcement of the law, of course it is an issue, but it is usually the case that selective enforcement of the law would go against minority, would go against newcomers from Ethiopia, against weak people, the weaker strata of the Israeli society, but not against, like the rich people, or if you wish,
rich people.
Yeah, but we're talking about Prime Minister Netanyahu. If anything, I think that he's got a lot of bricks, vis-a-vis how the law system is treating him. So I think it is basically it is two things very fast. Ridiculous to come up with this claim, and definitely Netanyahu cannot come up with this.
Yossi Yona, Michael Kleiner, we're out of time, but thank you so much for coming in. We are going out for a short break. Stay with us.
The Middle East. I-24 News is a witness. Our journalists live and breathe there every day. Get all the latest global news from our studios in Tel Aviv, New York, Washington, and Paris. Anytime, anywhere. Download the I-24 News app, available on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple, and Google stores. I-24 News, see beyond.
I'm Jordana Miller at I-24 News. Join me for the Holy Land Uncovered, a look at this remarkable land filled with so much faith and history and archaeology.
Watch Holy Land Uncovered. only on I-24 News.
Esta semana en News 24, América Latina convulsionada. Entrevista al economista y politólogo Carlos Maslatón, que analiza las crisis que afectan a Sudamérica. Estuvimos en Guatec, la exposición sobre tecnología y control ambiental del agua. Fútbol sudamericano en Israel. Los seleccionados de Argentina y Uruguay jugaron en Tel Aviv y vistieron al estadio de celeste y blanco. News 24, el magazine semanal en español de I-24 News.
Welcome back. In the south of Israel, residents have been out on the streets protesting after another night of rocket attacks. Now, it hasn't been 2 weeks since a ceasefire between Israel and a Palestinian faction in Gaza was reached, but last night a red alert siren went off, followed by 2 rockets launched from the Gaza Strip. Middle East correspondent Emily Rose met with residents of Sderot, used to being in the line of fire.
To the untrained eye, this seems like a normal town. But it's not. Once again, civilians were sent fleeing to bomb shelters by 2 rockets fired from the Gaza Strip. A regular occurrence here, even despite a ceasefire agreed on with Gaza militant factions after a ferocious flare-up 2 weeks ago, which saw over 400 rockets launched from the Gaza Strip. Residents here have conflicting emotions. They've resigned to the reality.
Israel is strong, and I know it. I'm a 50-year-old woman with 4 kids, and if there's a war, I'm ready to get up and fight. I'm not afraid. I just want quiet for my children.
But they're also exasperated and losing patience.
I'm asking the Prime Minister, get up and do something so we can have quiet. We came to Israel to raise our kids.
The Israeli government itself seems to be in limbo, responding to each rocket attack with airstrikes, but defying calls to destroy the militants in the Strip. Not everyone is satisfied with what they see as the government's lack of firmness.
I think someone needs to be the adult in the room and make a decision.
Although some doubt there's an easy solution.
I'm not sure that the voices we hear saying we need to take drastic steps to end this, I'm not sure that will bring a solution.
And the overall feeling here is one of frustration as they wait for the next rocket barrage. Emily Rose, I-24 News.
And our defence correspondent Daniel Semach is standing by there in Sderot. Daniel, thanks for joining me. We've just heard Emily's report there. Clearly a lot of residents are very fed up with a lack of action from the Israeli government and this constant rocket fire coming from Gaza into Israel. Tell me, what are the people there telling you? I understand there's been another demonstration held there this evening.
Yeah, indeed, Sarah. Just a few hours ago, another demonstration wrapped up here in the major junction of the southern city of Sderot, which was, of course, targeted in that overnight rocket attack, sending residents here yet again running to shelters. And dozens of residents came out today to protest on one of the major roads here in southern Israel, holding signs, many of them even young children. At one point, even they simulated a rocket alert siren and all fell to the ground. Now, I want to take a moment to actually listen to what a few of those residents have to say about the ongoing situation.
This is our color. We live this color. We have lived it since we were born. We don't know anything else.
I'm a grandmother to 5 children. I'm worried about them. I'm telling them to go to the bomb shelter. My daughters say they are afraid. They are wetting their beds at night. I see this in the shelter room, and I'm asking, when will this be over?
And Daniel, this situation regarding rockets coming over from Gaza into Israeli territory is certainly something that these residents have grown very, very used to. Tell me, in talking with them this evening, how much concern is there that this now moment of quiet may just easily flare up once again?
Yeah, that's definitely the concern, and even I would say the expectation of the residents that not only live here in Sderot, but in the Gaza border communities, in those communities immediately next to the border, where there were also rocket alerts sounded overnight last night. And we've heard from many, many, many residents in the years that we've been covering this ongoing situation, and it's quite clear to them that there's never really a true quiet or a true ceasefire, that it's always only a matter of time until the next rocket is being launched. And if we look at the most recent days, weeks, and even months, there's been a lot of activity and a lot of rocket fire over here in southern Israel. So the residents maybe have an even more acute sort of fear or concern and even anxiety. It really is an anxiety that pervades this area and the residents here. Of course, the children that we spoke to earlier have complained about the way that they have to grow up, and of course the parents as well. So a lot of concern that this situation, even though at this very moment there isn't a rocket being launched, the working understanding here is that it's always a surprise, but it's also never a surprise whenever another projectile is launched from Gaza towards Israel. Sarah.
Daniel Semak there. Thank you so much for bringing us up to date on the Israel-Gaza border. Now, this latest exchange of fire has prompted a strong reaction from new Defence Minister Naftali Bennett, who says that even one rocket that does no damage to Israel will be met with a harsh response, adding that he intends to stop the release of the bodies of terrorists killed in clashes with the IDF, while Hamas continues to hold the bodies of Israeli soldiers killed in action in Gaza. The chairman of the PA's Prisoners Affairs Commission slamming the announcement, saying Bennett's announcement is full of hate and extremism, adding this proves day after day that Israel is a terrorist entity that acts against Palestine. Now, this after a request was made by the Golden family during a meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu a few days ago, and their son Hadar has been held by Hamas for 5 years after he was killed during a cross-border invasion during a ceasefire and then dragged into Gaza. Minister Bennett says the new move will strengthen deterrence against potential attackers.
This is not new in terms of what should be done, but it's new from our point of view in terms of being serious to do it and to insist on return our soldiers.
So I know your pain is unimaginable, and you've been grieving for 5 years, and there's this still hoping and praying that you can get your son here to Israel where he belongs for burial. Do you have new hope? Is this in your mind, do you actually have new hope today that you did not have yesterday?
Yes, the new hope is related to this issue, but not exactly this one, because our concern now, as this public statement about the bodies is in a way a smokescreen for a more serious thing, what we discussed with Prime Minister. And this is the arrangement, what we call in Hebrew, hasdara, with the Hamas.
Now to the latest in the impeachment inquiry against US President Donald Trump, and House Democrats are preparing for their second phase of the investigation as a new report sheds light on what could be a crucial aspect of the Ukraine scandal timeline. Now, President Trump is once again dismissing the investigation and now appearing to distance himself from one of his closest allies. Ines de la Cutera reports from Washington.
The New York Times reports President Trump was told about the whistleblower complaint in late August, and it wasn't until September the nearly $400 million in military aid to Ukraine was released. But President Trump is still dismissing the impeachment inquiry at a campaign rally in Florida Tuesday.
Think of this. Impeachment. That's really bull.
And now appearing to try to distance himself from his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. Witnesses testified last week during public impeachment hearings that the president had told them to talk to Rudy about Ukraine.
We worked with Mr. Giuliani because the president directed us to do so.
The White House record of the July 25th call between President Trump and the president of Ukraine shows Trump repeatedly mentioned Giuliani. But the president told Bill O'Reilly during a radio interview he didn't know what Giuliani was up to in Ukraine.
So you didn't direct him to go to Ukraine and do anything or put any heat on him?
No, I didn't direct him, but he is a warrior. Rudy's a warrior.
Giuliani insisting he's not worried the president might try to throw him under the bus.
When they say that, I say he isn't, but I have insurance.
Giuliani later adding he was being sarcastic. Meanwhile, House Democrats are moving full steam ahead with the impeachment inquiry, releasing the final closed-door deposition transcripts, revealing Office of Management and Budget staffer Mark Sandy testified aid to Ukraine was withheld on the same day President Trump spoke to the president of Ukraine. The House Judiciary Committee now ready to pick up the inquiry with new hearings scheduled for December 4th following the Thanksgiving holiday.
And our senior Washington correspondent, Dan Raviv, is standing by for us in D.C. Dan, lovely to have you on. Do we know more specifically what these impeachment hearings this coming week will be like?
That's absolutely worth knowing because it's 1 week away, Wednesday, December 4th. And so we wondered, the House Judiciary Committee will have hearings. Will it be the same as we just had in November in the House Intelligence Committee, where everything was about how President Trump and Rudy Giuliani and others apparently put pressure on Ukraine? Well, the answer from the majority Democrats is no. The Judiciary Committee this coming Wednesday is going to have experts on the Constitution of the United States, including legal experts and professors, as to what kind of behavior by a president could merit impeachment. You may know that only twice in U.S. history has a president been impeached: Andrew Johnson in the 1860s and Bill Clinton in 1998. So Donald Trump would only be the third one. And, well, here's the committee trying to set up kind of the legal framework for why it's doing the right thing. Republicans will ask questions and will be very skeptical, saying it's the wrong thing. And one thing we're waiting for is to see if the president will send a White House attorney to represent him. The committee says it would welcome that. Sarah?
And Dan, certainly a lot of pressure mounting there on US President Donald Trump. Tell me, what is his mood like at this point?
Well, some insiders say that he hates the word impeachment. He does not want it attached to his page in history, but he seems ready to fight. He was at a rally last night in Florida, one of his big crowded rallies, spoke for 90 minutes. He said that the entire investigation, you saw some of it in the report by Inez, is BS, and so he's using salty language. And then he sent one tweet from his Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach. It shows him like a boxer. It seems to be based on a still photo from a Rocky movie, and that's, again, him sort of showing he's ready to fight. His critics say that this photograph, this mock-up, shows that he's ridiculous, or one said narcissistic, but friends of the president say, hey, you got to have a sense of humor. Sarah?
Very bizarre indeed. Dan, tell me, has public opinion shifted one way or the other in the last month or so?
Well, we're watching the polls very closely, and it actually seems there hasn't been much of a change. But if anything, according to a Reuters poll, there's slightly more support for impeaching the president. It seems to stand at 47% in favor, 40% against. A poll by CNN found 50% of Americans want the president to be impeached, but also removed from office. I think everyone knows that that'll be up to the Senate, probably in January, controlled by Republicans. There's hardly any chance the president will be thrown out of office, but apparently half of America would like to see him impeached, and that's likely to happen in December, Sarah.
So, Dan, tell me, how does all of this then affect the presidential election campaign for 2020? It's fast approaching.
Well, here's an angle you may not realize. Obviously, all the Democrats, more than a dozen who are running for their party's nomination, they say that Donald Trump should be out of the White House. They vow to beat him next November if he isn't impeached and removed by Congress. But in the meantime, if there is a trial in the U.S. Senate in January and February, 6 of the candidates, including Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, they'll have to sit as jurors in that trial in the U.S. Senate. That suggests an advantage to former Vice President Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg. They're not senators. They can stay out there on the campaign trail. This could actually help them, and maybe not so much the senators involved in the trial. Sarah?
Well, it's certainly all happening there in D.C. Dan Raviv, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Sure.
And finally, in Florida, a group of 3 tigers were brought to a big cat rescue sanctuary after retiring from a Guatemala circus. A spokesperson for the shelter explaining that back in 2017, Guatemala banned wild animals in circuses, yet they don't have any sanctuaries in the country, so they needed to find new homes. But after a year of paperwork, the tigers were able to get into their new home. Good for them. And we'll leave you with these images. I'm Sarah Coates. Thanks for watching.